Yokoso owashitare. Welcome, one and all. Now, I don't normally do these kinds of things. This is a first time for me, but I figured it wouldn't hurt. Might as well give it a shot, see if anything cool happens. I don't know. Also, I do like video games. I was a big fan of the original Ghost of Tsushima, and apparently we have here a trailer for the sequel. Now, I did my best to try to stay spoiler-free, but just because it's so popular, I ended up learning a few things about it. Like, I do know it's set in roughly the Sengoku period. I do know that it's somewhere in Hokkaido, I believe, is where they're setting it, and I do know that the main character is a female, but I don't know anything other than that. I haven't actually watched the trailer, so I'm very interested to see what they've got in here and see if there are any little bit of tidbits that I can point out as far as history or maybe literature, because literature is really my strong suit. However, I also am not super familiar with the Sengoku period, the Warring States period. I'm much more concerned with the time frame about 500 years before that, but who knows, maybe we'll find something interesting and let's see what there is. So without further ado, let's go for it. Okay, trailer reaction, let's go. I'm sorry, I'm a little weird. I mean, beautiful, as always. I mean, Ghost of Tsushima is famous for that, like, yeah.
We are beyond the edge of Japan.
Ah, okay.
People come north to disappear.
Okay. Okay, I actually really like what I'm seeing. I was expecting to be a little bit
But you are hunting.
Again, shoot. I'll get my opinions
And
after.
now, every Ronin here is after you. Still think you're the hunter?
Okay, we're gonna have to go back and check that out. I mean, that is really cool looking, I'm not gonna lie. The mask and the kasa, the straw hat. Why the guitar? Are we in like the American Southwest right now? Okay, maybe that is just a shamisen. But see, the connection between cowboys and samurai is not for nothing. Oh, look at the horses! Okay, I do have a lot to say already. Do have a lot to say. Swords? A Musashi reference? Maybe? She's got a shamisen on her back, so I'm assuming that that's going to play into something. I wonder if that's the stand-in for Jean's shakuhachi. Now she's got a shamisen. Okay, I'm going to be honest. Before I saw this, I was a little bit concerned that this was going to be not as cool. I thought it was going to be... When I first heard that it was going to be set in Sengoku, Japan, I had to roll my eyes a little bit because I was like, oh my goodness, here we've got another samurai story about Sengoku period Japan, Warring States period Japan, because apparently that's the only period of Japanese history that ever existed. And I was a little disappointed because the previous game, Ghost of Tsushima, obviously was set in the Mongol invasions, which is a period of Japanese history that people don't normally talk about, which was great. And so I was hoping that the sequel, if there was ever going to be a sequel, would be set in maybe the Genpei War, or maybe the Rebellion of Taira no Masakado, or maybe I'm currently working on translating some stories about the former 9 Years' War, which was a war in the northern part of Japan that a lot of people, Westerners especially, don't know about. So I was a little bummed out when I first heard about this, But I think they did the best thing that they possibly could with it. They took it somewhere far away into Hokkaido, which I believe at the time was named Ezo, and was not considered part of Japan. Like, not even close. I don't believe they had Hokkaido as part of Japan up until the Meiji period, which was the 1800s. So this taking place in, I think the date said 1603, was very much not considered part of Japan. So like they say in the trailer, this is a place where people escape. This is a place outside of Japan. It's not part of it. I'm assuming we're going to have a lot of Ainu influence in here too. The what many people presume to be the original native inhabitants of Japan. Now, some people think that they came down from the Sakhalin Islands and into Japan way later, and they're not actually the original inhabitants. But whoever they are, they were slowly pushed north over the years, and largely reside in modern Hokkaido. Back then it was known as Ezo. So let's go over a couple of things. I want to go through and see some stuff. Again, beautiful Mount Yotei, which when I first saw images of this, I thought it was Mount Fuji, and I had to roll my eyes like, oh wow, another Japanese piece of media that they're going to put Mount Fuji up because we can't get any more touristy, can we? But to their credit, it's not Mount Fuji. It kind of looks like it. I've never seen Mount Yotei, so I don't know how accurate it is. I'm assuming because these guys do their homework. I know that, so it's very likely that's how it looks. That's how it looks. So props to them. Again, there is a little bit of a subversion of expectations. And here's another thing I want to say about the wolves, right? So technically there is a species of wolf that is native to Japan, but it has since been wiped out. It is extinct. The Japanese wolf, aka the okami, does not exist anymore. Now, the thing about the okami, the Japanese wolf, is it is not a gray wolf. It is different from the typical gray wolf. It is a lot smaller, looks a little bit different. However, there are gray wolves in Hokkaido, if memory serves me properly. I know that there are brown bears in Hokkaido, whereas in the actual, like in Honshu and the lower parts of Japan, they only have the Asiatic black bears. But I believe in Hokkaido there are brown bears, and there may be gray wolves currently. There might not be anymore. But if there isn't now, there was probably in the time of the 1600s would be my guess. So this is actually fairly accurate. All right, and this is what I want to see. Taisho. Okay, because this is what I fancy myself as somebody who can read this kind of stuff. Okay, so I'm having some trouble trying to get these two lines here. Is something about it's a bunch of numbers, quite frankly, here, and then it's her age. Kyusai is like 9 years old, and then in Yotei ni tabiite. So I'm guessing it's saying that she was last sighted around Mount Yotei, and that's where you should look out for her. But what I can read is this: Kono onna no kubi ni hobi 100 ryo. So kono onna no kubi. So for this woman's head, literally it says neck, but for this woman's head, hobi, reward, 100 ryo, so 100 gold coins. So somebody wants this woman dead. I mean, obviously, if you couldn't tell. Anyways, what else was there that I wanted to see? I find this interesting that they have this clearly like Western, like cowboy Western Mexican style guitar that you would kind of think of like a cowboy. Now, at the time, I believe there were some Portuguese in the area, at least in Japan. There were Portuguese around Japan. I very highly doubt that there were any Portuguese that made it all the way up into Hokkaido, into Ezo. And even if there were, the Portuguese are not the Spanish. They are not the same people. However, there is a somewhat of a cultural link between cowboys and samurai, okay? And the reason why I say that is especially if you look into the history of old samurai, ancient samurai, before the Edo period, before they basically became glorified aristocrats that were allowed to carry swords, they tended to live way out in the east part of Japan, the east and the north part of Japan, which was largely considered untamed frontier land, untamed wilderness. They really didn't get along with the government. They didn't have a good time usually with the court and the people in charge. They valued self-reliance, physical prowess, fighting skills, and they were, again, where is the scene here? These horses, and the reason why I was geeking out about these horses is the north of Japan. Now, again, I don't know about Hokkaido at the time, but the north of Japan was known for having exquisitely nice and well-bred horses because you had all this big grassy area And because warriors tended to prize horses, because for the longest time, long before the samurai were known for sword fighting, they were known for horseback riding and archery. So they loved to raise horses, and that's what they did. They were really good at riding horses. They were really good at riding horses. They were really good at archery, aka firing projectiles. They lived out on the frontier. They didn't get along with the government. They prized self-reliance. Like, I'm sorry, samurai, especially early samurai, were just Japanese cowboys. That's how it was. And actually, I myself was not particularly, for most of my life, I wasn't particularly interested in Western wear. I found it kind of boring because, like, I grew up around that stuff, like Western culture, country, guns, and hunting and all that. And I was like, whatever. But I always liked samurai. Samurai were cool. And then when I started learning more about samurai, and I came to find out that early samurai in particular, which are the samurai I'm most interested in, were basically just Japanese cowboys. Like, if you took a samurai from the Heian period and transplanted them and somehow brought them forward in time and placed them in modern times, they would get along way more with cowboys and ranchers than they would with, say, scholars and people who actually study their language and their culture and their history. They probably wouldn't get along with those people very much because they wouldn't actually have that much in common. They would get along with the ranchers, with the guys who like hyper masculinity and those kinds of things. Okay, so that's just a little bit of commentary I wanted to put out there. What else do we got? Comes in again, beautiful scenery, absolutely beautiful scenery. And all these really old kanji. Again, I style myself as somebody who's really big into ancient Japanese literature, but like, bro, I am no credentialed expert, and some of these kanji that they're using here, I believe this one here might be something with spider, but I'm not entirely sure. And it looks kind of like a talisman, although I noticed it was hanging from her belt or whatever right here. So I'm assuming that has something to do with the story. And again, actually, to point out the cowboy thing is one of the reasons why cowboys have really big hats is because you wanted it to keep the sun off of your face, keep the sun out of your eyes. And so it makes sense that people working the fields and breeding horses and herding cattle, because that's the thing that the samurai did a lot of time too, they raised cattle, they would like to wear these big hats to keep the sun out of their eyes. What do you know? What else do we got here? There's a wolf, again, and I explained why the wolf is kind of pertinent. Mount Yotei. And the last thing that I say, again, this isn't my area of expertise, but I believe this is an aquabus, but it's an old-timey, I don't know if it's technically a rifle, I don't know if it has rifling on the inside of it, but it's a really old gun, okay, that the Japanese did use. And samurai were very eager to adopt and very eager to use back in the day when they had them because, again, the samurai were a very practical lot, okay? They were about fighting and warfare and winning the fights, okay? So when guns were introduced to them, they were like, yes, give me the guns. This is great technology. I'm going to use it to dominate my rivals and win and own everybody. Okay. I think that's it. Okay, so that's really all I have to say. That was my reaction. I came into this thinking that I was going to be a little unenthusiastic about it, that I was going to be a little bit disappointed because, again, I was hoping that it would explore different areas of Japanese history that aren't usually explored. And when I heard that it was in the Sengoku period, I was like, oh, great, more of the same. But I'm actually very interested now and to see where this goes, and it's again very, very interesting. So if you enjoyed that little piece of content, that little reaction from somebody who touts himself as somewhat knowledgeable in classical Japanese literature, please give the video a like, and please check out the rest of the channel, because while I don't normally do this stuff, what I normally do is I translate very, very old Japanese folk tales, and right now I am currently in a section of a collection of these folk tales that is centering on ancient samurai, and it's fascinating because you can, by reading these stories, you can go in and understand like their value structure and what they thought was important and the early origins of the things that would eventually become things like Bushido and the warrior culture and all of that great stuff. Plus, they're just good stories. I might not be the best storyteller, but I'm working on that. I also occasionally do explain things from video games. I do have a whole series about explaining the classical Japanese that shows up in Ghost of Tsushima. Speaking of, I am actually very interested to see the Japanese version of this trailer because there might be some more Japanese hints and things going on in there that are not alluded to in the English version of this. So again, hopefully you enjoyed that. Please feel free to check out the rest of the channel, and we will see you next time. I don't know when I'm going to end up doing another one of these reaction videos. It's not something I plan on doing religiously, but maybe occasionally when something big like this does drop, maybe I'll throw my 2 cents into the ring just to see what happens. Anyways, thank you very much. Thank you for coming. Ito kateji no koso haberi kere. That's my best attempt at trying to translate thank you very much into classical Japanese. It's probably wrong, but whatever. Thank you, and we'll see you later. Goodbye, everybody.